Hey, hey, good morning, and welcome to Spiritual Vacancy. We are here to help fill your spiritual void. My name is Brooke Ann. I'm a psychic medium and a Reiki practitioner, and I am with the lovely.
Hello, I am Mona Lee, the owner of Beautiful Mind in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Energy healing, hypnotherapy, and all that fun stuff. And we're on this podcast, Spiritual Vacancy. We're so excited to introduce our friend Chris Kidder. And I just have to tell a really funny story about how we met. And I was at my wellness center, Beautiful Mind, and that's when I had the brick and mortar place. And she came in the doors and she's like, "Hey, have you ever heard of hand analysis? I kind of want to show you what I do." And I was like, "Sure, I love it." And she started showing me prints of hands and what it's about. And I was like, "Oh my goodness, I love all things psychic and all things spiritual and all things metaphysical." And I was like, I've never talked to a palm reader before." And she's like, "I'm not a palm reader. This is not palm reading. This is science." And I was like, "Oh, I stand corrected." But oh my goodness, has it ever been fascinating, Chris? So I am so excited to get the world to get to know Christine Kidder and who she is and what she does, because it is an amazing reading for those who have never had their hands really looked at and analyzed. And every line, every marking is just, yeah, wow.
Well, thank you, Mona.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't had my hand read ever, so I'm looking forward to setting something up with Chris and getting my palm read by her. And because I cannot wait to hear what I'm sure everybody's hands are so unique or different. And then with you, Chris, how did this spiritual journey start, or what were the steps that you took, or what was it in your life that changed to get you to where you are today?
Before I go there, I just want to come back and I'm not going to correct Mona because you are right. That is what I said then. But now I can say, and I will say, I am a palm reader.
Yes.
However, however, I don't introduce myself that way generally because people have ideas about palm reader, fortune teller.
Mhm.
That people kind of automatically, very often will kind of make that connection. It's and hand analysis does have its roots in palmistry, but it's the modern version of palmistry that is more updated, that gets rid of the predictive element, and it's also it's been studied for the last 50 years, where every marking they tell you about, I know that it's the same on every hand, and it expresses itself either in the positive or the negative, the same no matter who I'm talking to. It's been
Mm.
studied, it's teachable, it's repeatable. That's the science part of it. Um, there is an art to it, but there's also this spiritual, it's definitely a spiritual modality, which I wasn't even aware of so much when I started. I thought it was more practical. But in any case, yes, I do read palms, but I don't um, call it that. So anyway, so to your question, Brooke, so that was a little bit of a I thought not a simple question as far as where my spiritual journey started, but I'm going to try to put it in a nutshell, because it really started with the hands. But I just, when I was thinking about that question, I thought about really like way before that. I mean, I discovered hands in 2009, and I'm not going to do math right now and figure out how old I was. I was in my 40s, but way before that, I was always into personal development, and I always love to read. I'm always reading books and learning more, trying to figure out, how to improve myself. Where do I fit in with the world? How do I, that's always who I've been. And one of the first books that made an impression on me when I was probably 18 years old was called What Color is Your Parachute? Which was the gist of it was you or should figure out, create a job for yourself, or find or create a job for yourself based on who you are, based on your skills, your talents, um, your values, a whole list of things. And they have exercise that you do to figure out who are you, what would be the perfect job for you. And then if it doesn't already exist, you create it. So
Mm.
this book planted the seed for me that I have a purpose. There's something here I'm supposed to be doing. Still, I didn't think of it as a spiritual thing at that point. It was more of a practical thing. Like, if I know what I'm supposed to be doing, I know where to put my energy so I can be successful. So, that book kind of put that idea in my head. So I was reluctant to go put too much energy into any one kind of job that was just a job. But I had various jobs and things and did different things that we don't need to go into all that. But in between then and when I discovered hands, there was lots of books that influenced me, but didn't really change my life. It influenced how I thought about the world and how I fit into it. But excuse me, but it was when I discovered hands that it changed everything. That I dove into this rabbit hole that I still haven't gotten out of. I'm never leaving because it's very, very deep. And interestingly, it does connect back to that very first book, which really was about purpose. And because hand analysis is all about understanding your purpose and who you are so that you can live your purpose, or what you might call your dharma, which I was just listening to one of your podcasts about that. So for me, so when the way I got into this was when I heard some woman on somebody's TELUS summit saying, your life purpose is in your hands, literally. Your fingerprints are formed before you're born and they never change, and they contain your life purpose. And I remember going, what? I've only been looking for my life purpose my whole life. I have to know. And so that was the beginning. I'm like, okay, I need to know this. This is crazy. So when I found out what was in my hands, it totally blew me away, because it didn't tell me something I didn't know, something new. It told me it was so specifically the path that I was on that I didn't trust. And not everybody's purpose is as specific, but mine was like, I think I was supposed to be doing this because it was so specific. I mean, to give you an idea of what I mean by that is, at that time, I was looking into creativity coaching, which fits into my purpose. And I actually thought I made that up. Life coaching was a kind of new thing then. And I was thinking, I could really see myself doing that. And I was looking into life coaching programs. And I thought, I'm going to be a creativity coach. I'm going to help people overcome creative blocks, because even though I went to art school and I'm supposed to be the artist, I always feel like a fraud, and I always had these creative blocks. And now I understand all this from my hand perspective. But I had at that point learned some tools to work on that stuff. And I thought, that's what I'm going to help people with, because that's what I've struggled with much of my life. It turns out that creativity coaching was a real thing. I didn't invent it. But so with that in mind, when I found out what was in my hands, what I was told my life purpose was mentor to artists. From somebody who didn't know me from a hole in the wall, based just on my fingerprints, which to me was totally mind blowing. I'm like, how is this even possible? How does that work? So I said, I guess I need to do the creativity coaching thing, and I need to find out more about this stuff, because this is crazy, and so that started my journey on learning, well, both the creativity coaching and hands. Was like a year later, I finally learned how to, I found, there was an offer to learn to read the fingerprints. That was my first step. Before that, I put every book on palmistry in it, like for the next year, and nothing had the life purpose stuff in it. It was all traditional palmistry. A lot of it didn't agree with each other. It was inconsistent. But this stuff was like what I wanted to know. And so anyway, so it was a year later, I did the first training on how to learn the fingerprints. And so that was where I, started learning this stuff. And I'm sorry, I don't remember what your whole question was. It was like how I got started. Oh, that's how I got started on this whole thing. But it was, I think in the beginning, like I said, it was kind of more of a practical thing for me. It was very cool. It was fascinating. It was like, but so like I think I said earlier, hand analysis it's a science. It's an art, because there's so much information in your hands. It's, it's an art to know or to learn what to share, how to share it, what you need to hear now and all that. And then it's obviously a spiritual modality, because, I've been at events where I'm doing short readings, and you get every now and then, usually it's a husband who's skeptical with his hands like this. And he's like, yeah, why, how does the fingerprints tell you your life purpose, or why? And I'm like, well, that's the spiritual question. I don't know why, but my theory is you, before you got here in this body, chose to come here to learn certain things, to try to become a certain kind of person, have certain kinds of experiences, as evidenced in your fingerprints.
Hmm.
It's not a predestined as far as what you will or won't do. Kind of like a acorn has the potential to become an oak tree, but it needs the right conditions. It might get eaten by a squirrel, but given the right conditions, it's going to become an oak tree. It's not going to become a willow tree. It's got potential for a specific kind of tree. You have potential to be most satisfied in your life when you're living your purpose, which is written into your fingerprints. No guarantee that you're going to do it. So that's where the spiritual aspect is, and that's where it started for me. And I'm still learning. 15 years later, I'm still learning. There's so much here.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I have a question. Do you ever read anybody's palms, like say they get it read, one time, and then like 2 years later they come back? Do your lines ever change, or do they just stay the same?
Well, interestingly, look what I found, Mona. I have Mona's handprints from 2017, and then from one of them from 2022, because I was looking for that. But yeah, so I mean, you can't really see the details right here this quick, but yeah, so here's the thing. So your hands, everything you can pretty much see easily, the shape of your hands, the lines, the color, the texture, all of that tells us about your personality. Excuse me, we call it that's your personality psychology map.
Okay.
Well, that can change over time because with repeated thoughts or behaviors, so the lines are connected to the neural pathways of your brain. You keep having repeated thoughts, behaviors, it can show up in lines. Lines can get longer. Lines can grow, can suddenly grow overnight if you have a traumatic experience. So all of that can change. The only thing that can't change in your hands is your fingerprints, which is your soul's agenda for what you came here to do and learn in this life. And so you have the two different maps working together. That gives this idea of what you came here to do is the soul's agenda and to learn. And then the other map is who you are and maybe how you're going to try to do that. And so anyway, to answer your question, yes, lines change a lot. They don't usually change overnight. Usually it's over time, but I have handprints from people. Well, I've been making my own handprints since 2009. I have a whole file of my own and everybody else's, but mine hasn't changed a lot. I've seen a little line growing a little bit longer, but I've seen people's change drastically. We were speaking about somebody earlier, who I'm not going to name names on here, but my friend and yours, I think, has a very long heart line. The heart line tells us about our emotional style. It was a pretty long heart line. 2 years later, it got even longer. It went all the way around. I have handprints showing first. It's under this finger, and then it goes off the hand. So I've seen her heart line grow. And that tells us she spends even more time in her head than instead of in her heart, as far as feelings. So heart lines tells us a lot about our relationship style, our emotional style, how we like to express ourselves, and how we want love shown to us. So yes, lines absolutely change. Fingerprints are the only thing that don't.
So cool.
That is so fascinating. I remember when I first met you in 2017, and right away I was like, oh, do me. I want to know. And then when you did again in 2022, a few years later, and you shared with me that some of the lines have changed, and that would make sense because everyone's lives do change over time on what we do and how we are. And you were doing a workshop at my wellness center years ago, and it was so fascinating to see that you were sharing with people about their fingertips and the school of life and what type of I remember there's school of love, school of service, school of
Wisdom,
peace.
wisdom. Yeah,
Yes.
Yes.
Fascinating.
Do you remember your life school?
Mine was love.
Definitely. I just looked at your fingerprints before I didn't remember. It's funny,
Yes.
whenever, when we talk now and then, I think of you as school of service for some reason, but I look at these and you have almost all loops, which puts you in the school of service. I'm sorry, the school of love, which that tells me that your life, one of the major things you're here to learn about is relationships, feelings, expressing your feelings genuinely. This is your life school. This is the ongoing lesson your entire life here. Not changing. Hopefully you get better at it over time. And sometimes it's harder than others.
Woo, I've tried.
But we're all here to
Definitely
learn
the school of
that.
love.
We're all here to learn that. We're all here to learn the service thing. We're all here to learn about peace and wisdom. But the fingerprints that you have on your fingers, that's the area that you're going to have more experiences. That's the class you're majoring in this life.
Mm.
And
It's so fascinating when you can assist people in giving them direction, especially it seems like most people in the world want to know, why am I here? What is my purpose? Why am I alive? What am I here to do? And this is such a helpful tool for so many. So yeah, love
yeah.
it.
And that's the thing. This is why I'm still doing this and still learning more. I'm taking advanced classes with Richard Unger is the guy whose hand reading system I do. And he's a brilliant, fascinating guy. And he's about, I think he's 76 now. He started, this is his system that he picked up a palmistry book back when I thought it was when he was in college, but he recently said, I don't know, it was shortly out thereafter. And he started looking at people's hands and comparing. And the reason that got him into it was, so most people have a heart line, which starts under your pinky and goes across your hand, or maybe you can see it easier on Mona's. Starts here and goes like that. And then under it, you have a headline that starts under the index finger and goes across the hand that way, which tells us about how we think. Most people have one of each, a heart line and a headline on each hand. But he has, on one hand, instead of two lines, just one line that goes straight across the hand. That's a gift marking called a simian crease. And he read in this book that said people with a simian crease need a mission in life. And he's like, yeah, okay, you can probably say that about anybody, but okay, I'll think about it. And so he kept looking at people and talking to them about their stories and comparing. He's the guy who put together this incredible database of hand markings that work consistently. Like he's read everything written in English about palmistry, and anything that didn't work consistently that he couldn't personally verify, he got rid of that. And so his database is stuff that he could personally verify is consistent no matter who he's talking to. And the interesting thing is, so the simian crease, people who have that have very intensive focus and energy, allowing him to do something like the work that he's done. That's simian energy. I'm not sure why I brought Richard up. There was a reason here, but I forget.
That's
I can't wait to
fascinating
see.
though.
I want to see Brooke's markings because she had the gift of the psychic medium, and there's certain gift markings. So what happens, there was something I remember in the workshop, what happens when people don't use their gifts that are really in their hands scientifically? What happens?
So there's 16 or 18 different gift markings, depending on who you ask. Gift markings tend to be mostly, they're line formations in the hands. Most of them being lines, they can change. They can come and go, a lot of them. But certain ones like the simian crease, which is a headline and heart line that goes straight across your hand, that's not going to go away. That's like permanent. And some of them are like, they're not going away. You could have a gift marking like the gifted healer is at least 4 vertical lines under the Mercury finger, which is the pinky. That's the gifted healer. So there's different markings that can show up at different times. You don't always, some people will have it always, some people will have it at certain times. And so the thing about gift markings is if you don't have the gift marking to be a healer, for example, it doesn't mean you can't be a healer. It means if you have this gift marking, you better be using it or else you'll be paying penalties specific to that gift marking. So for example, and there are categories of gift markings, like there's intuition gift markings, and the penalties are similar for all of them. And so the intuition gift markings, which the healer is one of them. You could have a Persephone headline, which would be a headline that starts in between the index finger and the thumb. Mona's hands are easier to see. And the headline would come, instead of going straight across, it would come down into this is the moon of the hand. Right at the bottom, across opposite from the thumb, would come down into here, all the way down. The moon is the area of spiritual connection, intuition, your core self. So if you have a headline that goes way down into the moon, that's another intuition gift marking called Persephone. And so all the intuition gift markings that if you're not using them enough, penalty is alienation, stagnation, disillusionment. It's basically, you know, nothing matters anymore. I don't care. Depression. It's, you know, just getting sucked into the underworld and staying there too long. You know, we all may visit sometimes, but you can't live there forever, you know. And so, like with a Persephone headline, you're there to be a guide for lost souls. And because of that, you're gonna experience pretty heavy stuff, depression, addiction, you know, take your choice of what your what the darkness is. But it's a matter of, I don't know if you know the Persephone story, but she was kidnapped and taken to the underworld. She's allowed to come up once a year, like when the grass comes up in the spring. This is supposed to be when she's allowed back on the surface. And there's a lot to the story. You can go look it up. But the thing is, she knows that she can come up and she has to go back down. And with the Persephone headline, you're a guide for lost souls. And you will experience difficult, dark things sometimes, but you need to find ways to make sure you don't stay there. So that's part of the, you know, specific Persephone one. So yeah, so the thing is, each of the gift markings have kind of specific penalties. It's like if you're not using it enough. I can't tell you if you're using it enough. If you have the gifted healer, for example, that's a Mercury marking. Mercury is the pinky. Mercury is about communication. The gifted healer, also called the medical stigmata, is also about, it's specifically about communication, sharing psychological insights with people, so that they can, you know, improve themselves. It's not necessarily like body. I mean, I have actually the most massage therapists and other people who are that sort of healer, like body workers, they tend to have this as well. But that is a sort of communication. But the gifted healer marking is specifically like the psychological counselor, the spiritual counselor, somebody who's like good with words and good with listening. So if you have that marking and you're not using it enough, well, you'll know you're not using it enough if you're in the penalty phase, which would be intimacy issues. Your intimate relationships are not good for a long period of time. Maybe the answer is, where am I not doing my healing work enough? Enough means I don't have those problems. So, you know, only you know if it's enough, you know.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm like, as you're talking, I'm like looking at my hand. I have no idea what line means what. So I'm like, I don't know. And then is there like a certain hand that you do? Because I'm looking at my left, but I'm like, maybe it's my right.
I look at both hands. We look at
you
both
do
hands.
both? Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, and both hands are generally a little different. Sometimes they're very different.
They are different. Mine are different. Not all the way, but there's definitely way more lines on my right hand than on my left. So like, I don't
Are you
know.
right-handed? Are you right-handed or left-handed?
I'm right-handed. Yeah. So then there's like extra lines over here that aren't over here. Or they're just not as noticeable, maybe.
Well, one of the first things I'll look at is like his hand shape, but also along with that is Do you have, like, is there a lot of lines or only a few lines? So if you have a lot of lines, that tells me you have a very busy mind that doesn't really slow down much. Okay,
Bingo.
but that's fire energy. Okay, but if you have more, that's more on the right hand. And the
Yeah,
left hand, that's how you are in public more than at home. The left hand would show, if it's different, more how you are privately.
that's cool. Yes, I'm very publicly more outgoing, and then at home I just want to be by myself.
Well, but this isn't even about outgoing. This is more about how your mind is going.
Oh, with my mind. Oh,
You
okay.
can
Yep, that
relax
makes
your
sense
mind at
too.
home more.
That makes
Yeah.
sense too. Yes. That's so
Mhm.
cool. I cannot wait. This is so interesting, all of it. And then is there I know we're like there's another question we have too about because I want to keep going to that, but is there some part of your spiritual journey when you switched over to this, did you change friends or family, or were they kind of skeptic of what you were doing, or did you lose any friends because you're kind of more on the spiritual side of even, with people, or did everybody was accepting and everybody was loving with you?
Well, so it's kind of funny because I feel like at first, I mean, I wasn't like going out of my way to tell people close to me about it because I just figured they would not want to be interested. They would think it's weird.
Right.
Although when I was first learning, I would go home to my family and closest friends and get all their handprints so I could take them back to class and learn. So they knew I was doing it, but they're like, yeah, whatever. They didn't care that much. But but as I started investing more and more time and money and energy into, like, I'm really doing this thing. I'm doing lots of business trainings, learning how to turn this into a business. I was investing a lot. This is what I was doing. So now, at one point, the only person really who seemed to have a problem with it was one of my best friends, who always wanted to be supportive, always tried to be supportive of me. Um, it's funny. I find this humorous now. How she texted me one time, and so while I was learning hands in the beginning, I did a year-long expressive arts therapy training, and then later I did some creativity coaching training. I was doing that at the same time I was learning hands. So she texted me. She says, "Well, if the hand thing doesn't work out, at least you can fall back on the art thing."
Mm.
And then she follows that up with another text saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that the hand thing isn't going to work out." But the reason why I find this amusing is, and I'm sure she's concerned I'm like putting all this energy into this crazy thing that she didn't understand, you know. And the funny thing is, many artists or people like, and I'm not becoming artists, people who want to be artists, they get that stuff from their family and friends. They're like, "Oh, you can't do that. That's crazy. That's not reliable. You need to get a real job. You can't support yourself with that. Art is, not, real." And so my friend's seeing that as something more like, at least she knows what that is, and she's going, "You can fall back on this thing," and most people are like thinking is out there, because at least she can sort of understand the art thing.
Mm.
And I thought it was funny, but we're still friends. It's fine. Um, but even my husband, who is a scientist, and he totally um, is not into anything spiritual or anything. He supported this 100% from the beginning. Um, he's great. Um, I mean, he can't deny a lot of the things that, I mean, he's learned a lot of the people that we know well. I will talk to him in the language of hands, and he sees it like he's like, it's it's true. I mean, he has 10 whorls on his fingerprints. Whorls are about service. So the thing about anything we talk about in hands, there's a master path and a student path, meaning sometimes we're doing well, sometimes we're learning, hopefully, when we're struggling. So for the School of Service, service is about learning the difference between true service, which feels good. It's service coming from the heart. You want to do it. The giver and the receiver are both happy. Everybody wins. But along excuse me, along the journey of learning about service, you're going to experience servitude and sacrifice, which is the other side of the coin. Um, so for years, I used to call him Mr. Servitude because he never said no to anybody ever. And he's gotten better about that over time. I mean, when the dog sits on his chair, he'll go sit on the couch. And I joke that he's even in servitude to the dog. But the thing is, I'm only joking because the thing is, you're in servitude or sacrifice if you are feeling resentful. Resentment is the red flag that you're on the wrong side of this thing. But he's not resentful, and so it's fine, you know. But other people in our lives, he knows what's in their hands. I mean, like that person at the school, he'll even tell me, he'll see something going on with somebody, and he's like, "That's a school of peace person, right?" So he knows the language.
He
He
likes it.
he even sold a reading to a couple. We were on a cruise years ago. It was a young couple that were on their honeymoon, and we were in like a bar area on this cruise ship, and it was like a young version of my husband. He was like an engineer type, and I think I noticed his wife had like two simian lines. She was doing something with her hands, and I noticed something, and I said, "Can I see your hands?" And I was talking to her. One thing led to another. My husband, who speaks more engineering type language, convinced this guy that, oh yeah, this is scientific. Oh, it's real. It's good. They bought two readings because my husband would like sold it, and so that's how supportive he is, even though he wouldn't say he completely buys it. So basically, but the thing is, but for many years, I still kind of was. I hid what I was really doing from my family and friends mostly. Like I have a Facebook group, and I would put like events or whatever on Facebook, and I would like make sure that, or an email list, I wouldn't send it to any of them because like I know, like I would just assume the judgment is there. They don't get it. But I got to a point a few years ago where I don't care. I invited them all into my groups. I don't, this is what I do. I'm not, why am I going to hide for at this point?
Right.
This
You
is
have
who
your
I am.
husband
Take it or
support.
leave it.
That's all that matters.
That
Your
is-
husband supports you, and that's all that matters, really,
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
that's incredible, especially with being, and I love how you put together the art and the science of it. And many people who go into art years ago, it's like, oh no, you're gonna be a starving artist, and oh, you can't be a musician, or you can't do that because how are you gonna get like get that real job? But I love that you were just got to that point in your career to go, this is what I do, despite what other people would say. So I want to ask you that question that we have also is, what is that piece of advice that you would give to those who really want to get started on their healing path or journey? What would be that one piece of advice that you would give to somebody?
Okay, now while this sounds self-serving, I honestly mean it. They need to get a hand reading or find another way they need to understand what their life purpose is.
Yes.
Because that's the fuel to keep going. And there are other ways of knowing your purpose. I mean, I know that, and so yes, it's somewhat self-serving, but I honestly feel like that this is the best way to understand yourself. And the thing is, when I understood my life purpose, so that not only it gave me the confidence to now allow myself to learn to be the artist I always wanted to be. That's part of what that did that for me. And I'm not saying it was a straight line. I'm still fighting it and all that, but that's because I also have a life lesson. And that's the other part of what comes from a hand reading is you have a life purpose. You have a life lesson. I mean, there's a lot of other information too, but from your fingerprints, your life lesson, when you can understand that, that can help you understand the patterns in your life and why you get stuck and what you need to work on so that you can live your purpose. So understanding those things along with personality stuff, it's everything. But the thing is, unfortunately, I've recently been finding out that the more how do I say this? The more that I learn, the less I know. Like I used to, what I mean by that is when I first learned, I did the 3-day training to learn the fingerprints. And then I did a year-long training to learn all the rest of the database. And then I did advanced trainings. And, so there's lots more. But at first I'm like, all right, I learned all the names of the life purposes and how to identify them. And there, it's simple. And I thought the formula was simple. Understand your life purpose, life lesson, work on it and that will help you, your life purpose blossom. That's the formula. But over last couple of years, I've been doing in-depth kind of training, coaching with Richard, who I mentioned. And I'm like, boy, it's not that simple. There are layers of this, but I mean, you have to start somewhere. And but for me, anyway, going back to your question, I mean, I feel like just knowing my life purpose at first, even though I didn't know I needed to know the other stuff, that was fuel to like start working on it. So whether it's you find some other way or you get a hand reading, you need to understand your life purpose. So you have the fuel to get through the hard stuff.
Love it. I love it. And that's the key on this whole entire journey on life and being human, is just finding these great ways and great tools that is available to those out there who just want to find out, how can I make my life better? Who am I? What am I supposed to do? And that is so exciting. I love that you're doing the work that you're doing. I love that you are living your Dharma. So grateful. So grateful.
Me too.
It's and it's a journey, it's a process. It's like, it's up and down. It doesn't mean it's easy, but what's the alternative? And so I find it's amazing when you, like you said, you find these tools
Mhm.
and it's like, wow, this is so cool. So I mean, I was very enthusiastic for many years, and then I sort of burnt out a little bit or whatever, or I stopped doing it, or the things get in the way, and I realized I was in my life purpose inverse. I was letting my life lesson get in the way, putting the energy in the wrong place. And so the thing is, you can always go back to the map in your hands, and if you're stuck in your life, it's in your hands. You can find the answers there at what you need to work on to get back on track.
Yes. Wow.
Fascinating. So great. Yeah. What's the weirdest like hand line you ever saw? Like when you read someone's hand, you're like, oh wow, this is rare.
Well, it's not just, well, I can't remember that specifically, but I can think about somebody who I know who had so many lines in their hand, it was insane. So we talk about the elements in hands: earth, air, fire, and water. And like I told you, a lot of lines is kind of fire energy, but especially if you have, like, some people have really deeply carved lines. Let me see if I have it in here. No, not in front of me. I could have brought that up, but this one person it looked like, I mean, there were just so many lines. It was insane. I'm like, where do you even start? So I mean, sometimes I'm still doing these, like I said, these advanced hand classes every 2 weeks, and I'll bring handprints to the classes where Richard will put in his thoughts on it, which really it's amazing. I feel like I'll never be able to do what he does. It's fascinating, but I learned so much. But I brought those hands in for him to talk about, and but I think that's the thing that stands out for me. There's a couple of handprints, but the one I'm thinking of in particular, that was just so many lines, so many crazy lines. Oh, and actually, now it's funny, the opposite is coming to my mind as far as an unusual thing was my daughter. When she was younger, when I started doing this, she was just 12 years old and not very enthusiastic about this, but now she's one of my biggest fans. She always sends me her pictures of her friends' hands. Tell me something. But she didn't have a lifeline at all. The three main lines are your heart line. Let's use Mona again because it's dark.
Yeah, easy Mona.
The heart
Oh
line,
boy.
the headline, and the lifeline is like the one that goes around the thumb. You have two of those, Mona, so we need to talk about that, but that's a different.
Ooh. Maybe there's two of me in my head.
Living two lives at once. But lifeline goes around the thumb and around the base of the thumb. Okay, and most people have those three lines on both hands. Some people, like I said, instead of the heart line and headline, they'll have the simian, but that's rare. Raven did not have a lifeline, like, at all. And so and the lifeline is not about how long you're going to live. It's about, you could say, energy, vitality. You could say it's about first chakra stuff, your connection to your home of origin, your family, being grounded. And I didn't understand this. And so I had a couple different teachers at the time who had different answers that didn't make sense to me. Excuse me. And I sent it to Richard, and he didn't really know who I was then. And I didn't like his answer too. I sent him the email and a handprint, and he said, "Call me." This was an email back. I never spoke to this man before. He would do these classes with 50 people in the class, so he didn't know me. But he wrote back and said, "Call me." With his phone number, and I wrote back, "Now?" He said, "Yes." So I called him. He said, "You have 10 minutes." And this is also simian energy. Very blunt. There can be misunderstandings because they're very focused. So he told me the story about how she needs to do things to be grounded, and suggested a few things about getting grounded. And I'm like, it doesn't make sense to me because at the time she was a rower, she was an athlete, she would win everything. She was very focused, very she was what I was learning didn't make sense. But now over time, now she's 29 years old, and what he said kind of did make sense over time. That was important to learn to get grounded. But the other thing was I learned. So here's the other thing: is what I learn is you can talk about. I'll do Heartline workshops because that's one marking that can tell you a lot about yourself. But it's only one marking, and I might be saying your Heartline says this, and you might say, "Well, I don't really relate." And usually that doesn't happen, but you have a lot of other things influencing it. So there's a lot of things working together to create this picture of you. So it turns out that with the other picture, part of the picture of her is her life purpose is living your passions. And when I've watched her over time, and I've learned that when she decides to do something, comes from her, she works harder than anybody to be successful. Here's another thing I can teach you. Put your hands up like this, Brooke. Let me see I want to see your thumbs. No, all right, can you put them out? Yeah, like that. So thumbs tell us a lot about, can you move back a little bit? Yeah, that's better. Okay, so your thumbs tell us about, it's about how you manifest things in the world. We talk about the angle here, angle of opposition. So this is, if you have kind of like a right angle here, that means you want a lot of responsibility, a big garden to tend. Okay? It's kind of closed more. It's like, I just work here. I don't really, I mean, you should start out like this, but that's because you were trying to, yes, Mona,
Be in the camera.
Mona has big thumbs.
I do. I have big hands. I have man hands.
No, you don't.
I do.
remember you said that. But
Mona has man hands.
this picture, you have the angle is very it's not very wide, but I bet you can open up your hand like that. Yeah, you can do that. Yeah. But this might have been just trying to fit it onto the page. So it's just a moment. But my daughter, her she's got a very small angle here, and a high set thumb, meaning it comes up high from her hand. Low set thumb means you can manifest stuff like that without even trying. So she got a very high set thumb, low angle, and no lifeline. This looks like, from what I've been learning, this looks like somebody who can't do anything, who's but she was winning everything. And I was like, I didn't understand. She was the best at anything she tried. And then I realized, because she's working her ass off. It takes her a lot more energy and effort to be successful than somebody with a thumb like this. So that was where, how it's a very complicated puzzle.
That is so interesting.
Yeah.
It's so good for people to have the most understanding they can with themselves and about themselves, so that they can still help assist themselves in maneuvering on through life. Knowing if it takes extra effort for them on their behalf, then just, maybe that's a motivating factor to go, okay, I need to work harder, or whatever that may be for that person. So that's fascinating. Did her lifeline change at all? Does she have a stronger lifeline now that she's
growing a little bit? Yeah, she's got a little bit of one now. It's still light, but it's kind of coming a little bit.
And I love how you describe that that is not your actual like lifeline to scare, like some people are so scared, like, don't read my poem because that's my, when am I gonna die or whatever. So I'm glad you mentioned that that's not like life or death.
Well, I give short readings at events, and that's the first thing I tell people. It's non-predictive, and then they'll be like, "Yeah, but when am I going to die?" And I'm like, "Okay, let me say this again. I don't know, it's my business." But yes, that's why I said, especially if you say palm reader, people go there, and a lot of people do.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about one more interesting marking on Mona's hands.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Yeah. Mona's man hands.
Yeesh.
I haven't looked at your hands in a while, and so I took a quick look and I just pulled them out. And so earlier I mentioned the moon of the hand. That's the area at the bottom here, across from the thumb.
Okay.
Now, do you remember what your life purpose is from your hands, Mama?
My life purpose is love. I always thought it was service because I just love to serve and serve and serve and do. And the life purpose from my hands, from the fingertips that I remembered was about love. Or that's the life. No, help
That's
me.
actually your life lesson, because and service and love are similar, have similar flavors, a little slightly different. But you have a fingerprint here in the moon, a whorl fingerprint. Okay, all all of your other fingerprints on your fingers are loops. So we'll learn how to read hands a little bit here. So you have all loops. That puts you in the school of service. You have a whorl here. So I told you all the lines in the hands can change over time, but because this is a fingerprint, people can have fingerprints in their palms, and fingerprints don't change, including in the palm. So a whorl in the moon says that your life purpose is spiritual teacher, like spiritual teacher with love. Actually, spiritual teacher. Oh, you also have a one whorl on your right. Same kind of whorl on your right thumb. No, left thumb. Left thumb. So left thumb is family and community. So I'd say creating a spiritual family community. You can put it any way you want it. You can play with the language, but it's about spiritual teacher and it's about family and community.
Wow.
That's what your purpose is. But so the whorl in the moon is a little unusual. That's your highest ranked fingerprint right here. So that's cool.
Well, thank you for that reminder, because I totally love to be reminded with why I feel like I know why I'm here, but to hear it from just a print that I wouldn't even know what that means, and to understand that, yay, I am living my life path and my dharma. So I'm so grateful. And I definitely need to get another appointment with you to get another, just to get full understanding, because it's a lot of information. So where in the world, because I know Brooke Ann is going to be the first one on your list to book a reading now with you. She gets first dibs, everybody. So let Brooke Ann get hers first. But where can people find you, Chris? Where can people find you so that they can get a reading from you, or even in their place of business, book a workshop with you or book classes with you? Where in the world can people find you?
Well, if you're local to the Myrtle Beach area, I can do a reading in person, or occasionally in New York, but if you're anywhere in the world, I can do it on Zoom like this, where I would mail you a hand printing kit and you would send me handprints like this, and I can do it from anywhere. So you can go to my website, which is yourcreativepurpose.com, and you can book a reading there, or you can call me, or better yet, text me, because I don't answer calls. Numbers I don't know. But if you want to text me at 518-421-2091. So you want to do a reading, and I'll get on the phone with you and we'll work it out. And if you're not local, I will mail you the hand printing kit with instructions, and we can take it from there. Also, if you are local to Myrtle Beach, I can do a hand reading circle where you get maybe 10 people come to your home or business or whatever space you have, and everybody will get a short reading, like a 10-minute reading, and everybody will listen to each other's, because I'll be like, I don't usually make handprints there. I'll show you on the actual hands, but I'll be like, well, Mona has this kind of a heart line, and this is what it looks like, and this is what it means. So then everybody else there will be going, oh, I have that too. So you're learning from the other people's readings as well as your own. So if you book one of those, you can get a complimentary life purpose reading, a longer one for yourself for booking a hand reading circle. Yeah, and I do workshops and classes locally. I haven't done them in a while. I'm going to start doing them again in the fall. But I certainly, if you're interested in hosting something, I'm happy to do that
Yeah.
locally. So I've gone as far as where's that in Wilmington to do some events. So I mean, if it's worth it, I'll travel a little bit. But
Well, I'd
Myrtle
like
Beach,
to
Colorado Springs, New York area. I'll do things in person.
Exciting, exciting. Yeah, we have our fall retreat coming up. That's already all set to go, but I'm thinking about the spring, and I've hosted you several times, and it's fascinating for anyone who would like to book, even family and friends coming together and learning about each other and along with themselves. It's such a great thing to do. So I highly encourage that, because I've done it a few times with you in my workshops and my centers. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
You guys go check her out. Go book a reading, get your palm read, and her to tell you all about it, which just sounds absolutely amazing, fascinating. I mean, it's just such a interesting concept of everything that you explained today. And it's like, I want to know more. And I'm sure the viewers do too.
We'll work out.
Yes,
We'll plan a session.
definitely. I'm already looking forward to it. And
Yeah.
we thank you guys for listening in today. Go check her out at her website, her Facebook page, book a reading for yourself or for a group. And we will see you all next week. Y'all have a beautiful day.
Thank you
And
so much.
namaste. Thank you, Chris, for being here.
Thank you so much. Namaste.